Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up, we have state honors musicians. Sandy, are you handling this?
Thank you. I'm going to ask our honors musicians to come up front here by the microphone, please. They can come while I give you a little background. Each year, more than 2,500 high school and middle school students audition for roughly 730 spots in the Honors State Music Project. The students selected to be part of the middle or high school band, orchestra, jazz ensemble, or choir get the opportunity to perform at the Wisconsin State Music Conference in the fall. The high school auditions take place in February each year, and student results are sent out in late March. This year's 4-day summer camp was held at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. The middle school honors students audition in April and receive their music over the summer to start practicing on their own. The group meets for the first time in October when they rehearse with the guest conductor for a day and a half before performing at the music conference. Thank you for coming tonight. Why don't you each come to the microphones, tell us your name, what performance group you were in, such as middle school choir or high school band, and maybe your instrument then, and then also tell us one of the highlights of the experience. What stood out for you? What did you really enjoy as part of that experience? Thanks.
My name is Maggie, and I was in the choir, and I really liked it because I got to meet a lot of new people and with the same passion as me.
Hi, my name is Claire. I was in the choir, and one of the highlights for me was all the friends that I made there.
Hi, my name's Rhiannon. I was in the band, and a highlight for me was people who took music as seriously as I do.
Hi, my name is Sam. I'm also in the band, and the highlight for me is just how well, I'm in middle school band, and it's just how well everything sounded.
My name is Molly, and I was in the middle school choir, and a highlight for me was all the cool friends that I met and how good we sounded, and yeah.
My name is Ben. I was in the choir, and I just really liked getting to learn all the pieces and meet a ton of new people, so it was fun.
I'm Peyton, and it was fun, meeting new people.
Good deal. We also had some local conductors working with some of you as well. So high school band director Ryan McCarthy was selected to be a section coach during the summer camp. Section coaches attend all rehearsals and run sectionals during the high school 4-day summer camp and the pre-concert rehearsal in October. So congratulations to Ryan as well, but congratulations. Stay put, we'll see if any of the board members have any comments or questions for you.
We do have comment from a board member who could not be here, so he asked that we read his comments. And anyway, this is in recognition of the honors music participants. This is from Rob Brown. I regretfully cannot be in attendance this evening. However, I wanted to extend my appreciation to all these students whose focus on and passion for music is exceptional. My wife, Tara, and I spent a cool morning traveling to Madison for the middle level honors musicians event to see our daughter, Maggie, perform, expecting fun, music, and a higher level of talent. I could not have been more wrong. The children in the choir, the band, and the orchestra were led by university-level conductors, were exceptional and beyond our expectations. Had the audience not known these young adults were in grades 7 and 9, they would have thought that certainly they were upperclassmen, if not college level. I can only imagine how wonderful our sophomores, juniors, and seniors perform. Thank you, students, for a fantastic experience as well as a deeper appreciation for your talent and your effort. That's from member Rob Brown. So, any other members have comments?
Mr. President?
Carrie.
How long did you have to learn the pieces? Did you get it beforehand or just when you went to the camp?
About a month beforehand.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have comments? Heather?
Congratulations. I wish I'd been there to watch you all sing. I'm curious and perform. I'm curious for those of you who are vocalists. I always struggle with my kids. What's homework like when you're someone who loves choir? math homework, science homework, even band is a little self-explanatory. So what have you done to help you practice as a vocalist outside of your instructional time with your teachers at the middle and high school?
Well, it helps if you play another instrument, because then you can play it on the piano to help practice. But then, if you're in the choir, but then also our choir teacher provides us with practice tracks so we can sing along with it.
All right.
President?
Yes.
Do any of you aspire to some kind of a career in music? Either a music teacher or something on the stage or something? Any of you?
Yeah, I want to be a band teacher.
Oh, do you? What level?
Right.
Middle school.
Middle school? How about the rest of you?
Well, as a follow-up, are some of you in musicals outside of school? Has anybody participated in music outside of school?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And what was that?
Just some plays at the Phipps downtown.
Yep. Singing parts, I assume?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Well, that's putting in that extra time is great. Maggie?
I've done solo ensemble and
Okay.
WMT.
All right.
And I've also done a jazz thing outside of school.
All right. Well, see it. Yes. Yeah. Congratulations, and shows that effort pays off. And thank you for doing us proud in our district. And you got some good praise from your dad there, Maggie. So the whole group did. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Our next recognition is fall athletics, and I will turn that over to Stephanie DeVos, our athletic director, and Erin Moen, assistant.
Good evening. This is not planned, and I don't mean this to be funny. It's kind of serious, actually. There's nothing more that I enjoy more as being around high school kids. And just when you think you've seen it all or heard everything, you just never know. We come here tonight, we try to be prepared and get the kids prepared. And one of the kids, and I'm going to put him on the spot here, was, so why are we here? And we just kind of looked at the young man, and he kind of answered his own questions. So, Devin, can you tell us why you're here?
We're just here to represent Hudson Athletics and for the fall athletics and show you guys kind of a summary of all the fall athletics, boys and girls, and show us maybe some accomplishments we had throughout the season.
Very good, thank you.
Yes.
Well done. I knew we could do it. So we have our three leaders tonight that are members of AMP. And we will turn that over to them. And we have Angela Huckle, Max Stubendick, and Keegan Sansoni.
Hi, my name's Angela, and obviously Keegan and Max, and we're here to just give a recap about the fall sports and all the great jobs that they did.
So one thing we really try to focus on as student athletes would be the academic part. And so we honor everybody in the fall sport with the top senior GPA. And some of these people are also top GPAs in our grade, many of whom compete in sports, and if not fall sports, they compete in spring sports or winter sports too.
Something cool that happened last Wednesday was we had two athletes from Hudson. They signed their national letter of intent to play college athletics. Anna Wilgren, who's over there, she signed to play hockey at Minnesota State Mankato, and Caitlin Gilson signed to the Ohio State for gymnastics.
Also, we had 7 new coaches, not all fall sports, but as you can see for fall, we had a new swimming and golf coach, and that's a big role to take over to run a varsity program, so thank you to them. So I'm not a cheerleader, but I know the cheerleaders. They are at all the football games, and they really help get the crowd going. And obviously, they raised $800 this summer, and they also do their kindergarten through 8th grade cheer camp, and it's lots of fun. And they also started a middle school cheer program this year, which is really exciting to include them to start their program early. Next up is football.
Hi, I'm Devin. The football season was great this year. We went 6-1 in conference. We were second in conference, and it was a lot of fun. What's really helped this season was the new practice fields right behind the high school, and that really just having something new and brand new like that was really special to play on, and especially the new stadium. I have a lot of great memories as a team there, and it was a great season, and appreciate, I don't know if you guys helped with the whole stadium or field, but it was awesome to play there. Got anything to say?
Okay.
Devin's one of our captains. I'm Adam Calls, the head football coach. Max Stubenick's also one of the captains, along with Bon Carls and Cole Goodbow. It was a good year. You know, we were 7-2, finished second in the league. A couple highlights. Homecoming game against Rice Lake was a great win. Rice Lake's playing this week in the state championship, so it's a good team. They're playing Division III, but it's still they're at the state championship. I think a highlight was beating River Falls again. We beat them. We've been playing for the Brown Jug for I think since 1953. And we beat them 9 in a row now, and that matches the longest streak in that span. So it's a big win there. You know, lost a couple close ones to Stevens Point. Got to find a way to beat those guys. Lost the last second field goal early, and then we lost in the overtime in the playoffs. But overall, it was a great year, and you know, more importantly than the numbers and records and all that stuff, just a good bunch of guys to work with. You know, they really prepared well. I've never been around a team that has practiced as well as they did. About mid-season on, they came to practice every day and just you know, did things the right way, and they really never gave up. They played with a lot of heart all year. So really proud of the efforts. You know, I know we have a facility that everybody's proud of. I think this is a team that everybody can be proud of too, just by the way they act on and off the field. And you know, it's a fun year.
Coach, are you going to have the same problem the Badgers have? Are you going to beef up that non-conference schedule to make?
Yeah, we're going to Stevens Point again next year, so we're going to keep banging on that door. We went down to Kenosha this year at the beginning, played Indian Trail, who has been a playoff team. They didn't get in this year, but I think the last 5 years before that, so they're going to come here for the opener.
So less travel at least.
Less travel, but then you know now the conference. Now we'll go to Superior and Rice Lake, which we didn't this year. So it's it all balances out, but. Yeah, we always try to play. You know, you gotta be better than 500 in your league to get in the playoffs, and we always just say, let's play the best non-conference schedule we can play, and so that's why we try to load it up. You know, I'd love to get. You know, Kimberly now is in the state championship. They won 69 straight. I'd love to play them, but they never have a non-conference opening. You know, we just love to get them on the schedule because we want to be the ones. I hope they win so we can be the opportunity to get them.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other comments? All right.
I do want to mention one. You know, we had a lot of recognition. We had 8 first-team all-conference guys. We had 2 second-team all-conference guys, along with 5 honorable mention. We had 5 all-region guys, but Cole Goodbow, one of the captains, was all-state. That was picked this week on Sunday. He was the defensive player of the year in our conference and in our region, and he was also all-state, so we had a tremendous year.
Wow. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have girls golf.
Hi everybody, I'm Tom Holland, first-year coach of the girls golf team. Surprise,
All right.
surprise, right?
Yeah.
I want to just say that it was a real pleasure for Paul Moen and I to coach the girls high school team this year. It was kind of a last-minute thing that came up, but we thoroughly enjoyed it. I've got 3 of our team members here, but there were a number of other team members that couldn't be here tonight. We had 14 on our team, many freshmen, a few seniors, and a few sophomores. I'll just name the individuals that were on our team. Isabel Brown, a freshman. Courtney Doomer, who's here today, a sophomore. Chloe Germain, a senior. Lauren Gretchen, a junior, Carmen Hall, a sophomore. I'm sorry, she's a junior. Paige Hillman, who's here today, who's a freshman. Sydney Kilty, senior. Malia Petleski, a sophomore. Madeline Soderberg, senior. Michaela Schultz, who's here, who is a freshman. Emma Gannon, senior. Abigail Baker, freshman. Keelan Gustafson, sophomore, and Lindsay Fall, a freshman. So we had quite the diversity of girls, 14, 5 play at a time, both varsity and junior varsity. And I have to say that we didn't start out well, but we kind of made it our motto to improve. Just let's not worry about winning conference or winning necessarily the match, but let's try to improve. And we did. And so from the first match that we had beginning of the year to the last one, we improved by 58 strokes. So that's quite an accomplishment by these girls. And so I'm very proud of them. Some of the highlights of this year for us, I think, not only the improvement in stroke play, but also the fact that we had 2 all-conference academic gals, Lauren Gretchen and Sydney Kilty, and 1 all-state academic player for golf, and that was Sydney Kilty. Now, in order to accomplish that, they had to maintain a 3.6 grade average or better, and they had to be a junior or higher and play on varsity. So the other highlight, I thought, was that one of our players, when we got to regionals, you go from conference play to regionals to sectionals to state. We got to regionals and we thought, well, if we're going to make it to regionals, we're really going to have to do awfully well. But Sydney Kilty at the driving range turns around and looks at me and says, you know what? I can make it to sectionals. I said, really? How can you do that? She said, well, all these other teams that are so good, they take the top 4 teams and then they take the top 4 players after that. So all these other girls that are on the top 4 teams, all those scores won't count. So I've got a chance to make it to sectionals. And I said, let's do it. So, and she did. And she shot her best round, 1 stroke better than one of her best rounds, actually the second best round she'd ever shot. So now we're going to sectionals, and I'm thinking, okay, now how can we get a state? So I go back and look online, and I say, well, what do we got to score in sectionals in order to get to state? Now, Sydney shot a 97, which was her second best score she had ever shot in her life. Now, the best score to go into the minimum score that she had to make to state last year was like 81. So I said, well, you know what? Let's go for it. So we worked on it. We got to the first hole, very nervous. She had never been to sectionals in her life, and she had played all 4 years. Pipes the drive 250 yards down the middle. Pars the first hole. I look at Paul Moe and I said, we're going to state. The thing I failed to remember was that she'd never played this course before in Wisconsin Rapids, and I had played it years and years ago. And so the wheels came off after that, but we had a great season and a great time. I'm going to let the girls talk a little bit here first, and you can introduce yourselves and just tell them what you. Michaela?
My name's Michaela. I'm a freshman, and I just thought this season was really fun meeting everyone, and we got to meet people from a bunch of different schools, and yeah.
My name is Courtney. I'm a sophomore, and it was my first year on the golf team, but I had a really fun time. I met a lot of new people who shared the same passion as me, which is golfing.
Hi, I'm Paige Hillman, and I was on the golf team, and I really enjoyed meeting all these new people from different schools and meeting everybody on our golf team.
Just one last word from me. That was that as much as we want to win and do well and represent our team and represent our school and our city, I'm so proud of the way the girls handled themselves in the course and really the friendships that they made from the opponents in the matches as well. And so I'm very proud of that. It's really fun to coach these girls. They're so coachable. Attitudes are fantastic, and just really proud of them. So Paige was our #1 player as a freshman, started playing golf last March. And so her scores are so good that she ended up being our first player on varsity. So, any questions for us?
Sounds like a bright future.
Yes, I think so.
And thanks for your willingness to stand in there and coach. And thank you for your participation. Yeah, we'll be looking for you guys to return next year and do another 58 stroke improvement during the year.
Nice. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, the Red Airs are going to talk about their fall season.
So we're the captains of the dance team. I'm Emily. I'm Alexa. I'm Chloe. I'm Ashton. And so during our fall season, we had a lot of fun getting ready for the football games. We get to do it before the performance while all the football players are warming up. And then we also get to dance at halftime. And we love doing that because the dancers themselves get a choreographed routine, which is a really good learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, and we've also been doing a lot of fundraising lately, so you can go to county market and we'll bag your groceries during the weekend. And we also have a Carboni's fundraiser this Thursday at Carboni's, and yeah.
Yeah, and basically we fundraise for our winter season, and we've been pretty successful with our season. We were conference champs last season, which was a pretty big highlight, and most of our opening competitions we scored pretty high in, first or second, which was really cool. And with a new coach this year, we're really excited to see where the year takes us.
Yeah, so currently we're switching gears into our competition season. We've learned our jazz, hip-hop, pom, and kick routines, which we're going to perform at 3 opener competitions, and then conference, regionals, and state. And then we perform at recital at the high school. And it's just a lot of fun. We get to connect with each other and other people. Yeah, so we're the Red Airs.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So the boys soccer team is not in attendance. Mr. Solm had a cold, so he's not here. So the boys soccer team actually did really well this year. They got second in conference, and that's a good because Eau Claire Memorial is a really tough team, so they got seeded second in the section 2, and they did really well. And they lost in the section final the game before state 2-1 in overtime, and it was a really close game, and it could have gone either way. And they also had a couple conference awards, as you can see, first team and second team, and honorable mention. So they just had a great year.
Girls swim and dive.
My name is Abby Larson, and I'm a senior captain for the swim team. This year, we placed first at conference for the 4th year in a row, as well as third at sectionals. Overall, the season was very successful and a lot of fun to be a part of.
I'm Taylor Sika. I'm a captain as well. I've been swimming for the past 4 years, and this weekend we just had state in Madison. 8 of us went, and it was just really fun, and everyone improved overall. So it was just a really good time.
I'm Lauren O'Neill. I am the 3rd senior captain. This season especially, we've overcome a lot of adversity, but overall it's made our team stronger as a whole and really helped us to hold true to our principles of resilience and perseverance.
Hi, I'm Ella Stein. I'm a sophomore, and this is my 2nd year swimming on the team. And this is also my 2nd year making it to state. And this year, in my 100-yard breaststroke, I placed 2nd, and I improved by 1 second, which is a pretty big accomplishment. And it was just a really fun time being on the team, and I really enjoyed myself.
So overall, tell them where you finished in your swim positions on your relays at state.
I believe all 3 of our relays got 15th and moved up a place, so we improved on everything.
And Ella was a runner-up state champion, so.
Yeah, what was the time difference between you and first place?
It was about, I think, a little less than a second. She went a 102.7, I went a 103.48.
Oh.
And did you bring your medals?
Do you want me to go get them?
No.
Okay.
So do we have a lot of returning people, or was it a senior-heavy team?
I think we'll have a lot of returning people. We have a lot of really good freshmen coming.
Yeah, there's going to be some good freshmen coming.
Yeah.
So go for 5 in a row over Eau Claire Memorial for conference champs.
for
Good,
sure.
good to hear. All right. Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Up next, the volleyball team.
So my name is Olivia, and this is my teammate Katie. At the end of our 2017 varsity volleyball season, we were 4-2 in conference. We beat Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire North, Rice Lake, and Menominee. However, we lost to Memorial in an exciting 5-set match, and also to River Falls, who went on to be the state champion runner-up.
Wow.
This record put us in a 3-way tie for second place in our conference. And outside of conference play, we took first in our home tournament for the 6th year in a row, first in the Northwestern tournament, and second in the Moore tournament. During playoffs, we were lucky to host Superior during the first round, and then went on the road to Eau Claire North. And even though we lost, it was the end of a successful season.
So to start the season, well, we were really, really young and inexperienced. We had 6 sophomores and only 3 returners. So it took a lot of hard work to be as successful as we were. Throughout the season, we bonded a lot as a team and had a lot of fun to get where we were. Julia Bennett, our primary setter, got honorable mention all conference, and Olivia our primary libero, got second team all conference. So overall, we had a really fun season.
Would you introduce your other teammates sitting in the back that wouldn't come up? Yeah.
Our coach Sadoff is back there.
This is Coach Sadoff's 12th season. Coach, would you stand up?
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, the boys and girls cross country team.
Before we begin, I'd also like to introduce Coach Krupa. This is Coach Krupa's 49th year. Coach, would you stand up, please? And come on up and join your team. You've earned that.
I think you misspoke. You said 49th year. That means he started when he was 2?
All right, so we came starting the season with a lot of confidence from last year, I think. We ended off with a 4th place finish at state. And, we lost a few seniors, which was a little disappointing. But, our season started off this year a little bit rough. I think Eau Claire Memorial kind of surprised us a little bit. They came off, they kind of had us running at the first meet. But we were able to regain it kind of at the end of the season. We took first at conference and also sectionals as well. I think everyone on our team was at least second team all conference, so that was pretty good. And then we didn't finish quite as well as we did last year. We took 9th in state, but we're still pretty happy with that with the upperclassmen that we lost.
So I'm Connor. I'm one of the senior captains. I just wanted to say that George Bond here, he was actually conference individual champion. So.
All right.
I'm Keegan. I'm also another senior captain. And I just wanted to note, too, we had 3 first team all conference, then the rest were second team. And this is also our 3rd year in a row winning conference and our 3rd year in a row winning our section, too.
I'm Sarah. I'm a senior captain for the girls team, and we had a really good season this year. We improved a lot from our past seasons, and we got a new head coach this year for the girls team, Jeremy Eckert. He did a really good job of motivating us to work hard and planning good workouts. We had a good season, placing first in all of our Wisconsin meets in our regular season, and first in conference sectionals, and then 6th in state. So we've improved a lot considering last year the girls team didn't make it to state.
Right.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I'm a junior captain for the girls cross country team. And I think one of our biggest things that helped us was we have a really young team. So this year we're only losing Sarah, and so next year, sorry Sarah. So next year we're gonna have mostly the same team, and then hopefully we'll do as well as we did this year.
I'm Maria, and I'm one of the 4 captains for the girls cross country team, and I think that this year's team was one of the closest teams that we've had in years. We planned many out-of-season activities where we'd get together and hang out as a team, so that brought us together, and I think that it really helps when you're closer to your team to work harder with them and get farther. So.
Coach, do you have anything to say?
I don't know why I need to say anything. What you hear from the students is basically where they're coming from, and they're enjoying themselves, and this is basically why I'm here, because if I can do anything to help them improve and make them feel that what they're doing is a great accomplishment for the school district and for themselves, to me that's what it's all about. And it's about the kids, it's not about the coach. And that's the way I look at it, because if it wasn't for these young adults here, my season wouldn't be as great as it is. And they're the ones that have to come through, and they're the ones that work hard, and I just stand back and watch. So that's why I say it's not about me, it's about the kids and how they respond, and you see their names in the paper, and this is because of their hard work and behind the scenes. You know, it's in the off season, it's the winter months, it's the summer when they have to work and be ready for the season when it starts. And it's not the coaches out there doing this, they're doing it themselves. And if they didn't do anything in the off season, well, your season wouldn't be that great. So it's the kids that are doing what you see in the paper and what you see in their final statistics. So it's not me. So thank you.
Well, are you coming back for one more season?
Oh, I might be back longer than you are here.
All right. Good answer. All right.
Up next is girls tennis.
John, you'll have to top that comment. I'm not going to make that same bet. Actually, I'm going to have all the girls come on up. I got a couple more here to get acknowledged. First, I'll have them tell them their names and then what position they played, and then we'll go over some statistics.
I'm Anna Wilgren.
I'm Taylor Owens.
We were #1 doubles.
I'm Sophia Jonas, and I was #4 singles.
I'm Annika.
And I'm Kate Johnson.
We played 3 doubles.
I'm Holly LeBrun, and I played 3 singles.
So we had a great year this year for the girls. They went 14-6 on the year and had a 70% match winning percentage. We had 8 of our 9 junior and senior girls qualify for the Academic All-Conference Awards. So we had 5 conference champions in 3 different positions. Senior captains Taylor Owens and Anna Wilgren at #1 doubles, who went undefeated on the conference here in the Big Rivers, defeating Eau Claire Memorial not once, not twice, but 3 times this year, which was awesome. Juniors Ani Lewis and Kate Johnson were BRC champions at #3 doubles, and they finished the season actually at #2 doubles by moving up a position, and they ended the season with a 21-2 overall record. And then freshman Sophia Jonas posted a 21-3 overall season record and won the BRC conference at #4 singles. So last year, the Raider women's team did not have an all-conference acknowledgement. This year we had 6. So the players that received second-team all-conference this year were Sophia Jonas at number 4 singles, Holly LeBrun at 3 singles, Kate Johnson and Annika Lewis at 3 doubles. And being awarded first-team all-conference was the undefeated team at number 1 doubles of the senior captains, Anna and Taylor Owens. Hudson also advanced 5 of our top 10 varsity players onto sectional play. And of those 5, Sophia Jonas, as a freshman, won the sectional title at number 4 singles, and Taylor Owens and Anna Wilgren also won the sectional title at number 1 doubles. Hudson then sent 2 players to the WIAA state tournament held at the Nielsen Center at UW-Madison, where Anna Wilgren and Taylor Owens were ranked as the 15th seed in the state out of 64 qualifiers. They won their first match against Stevens Point, then defeated Cedarburg to move to the round of 16, which was very good to get 3 matches in. While they played a great match, they lost to Homestead 3-6, 5-7 in 2 sets. I think you can trust me when I say they represented Hudson with great honor and pride. And not only did Taylor and Anna represent Hudson High School and the city of Hudson with honor and pride, the whole team did all year. So I'm going to leave you with a quote here, and then Anna and Taylor are going to talk just a bit. I'm going to leave you with a note from a gentleman from Eau Claire who dropped a handwritten letter off to Hudson High School. And this gentleman is from Eau Claire, but he comes to the Hudson matches and watches when we play. The elderly gentleman's been involved in USTA tennis in a couple different states and is a real tennis fan. His name is Larry Gint. And he dropped off a note at Hudson. In part, it said, "I've enjoyed watching your girls' tennis team compete this year, and I'm impressed with the entire program at Hudson High School. They're well coached." That's because of Kari, by the way. Kari Lewis is in back here as a coach. So, and they're an amazing group of girls. I know you're proud of them. In my opinion, most high school teams could learn a lot from the Hudson team to the true meaning of what tennis should be. I hope Taylor and Anna have a wonderful experience at state. It's been very enjoyable watching them play together and work together as a team. They get what the spirit of tennis is all about. I'm from Eau Claire, but it's hard to root for Memorial. Mm-hmm. So I adopted Hudson as my team. And stay relaxed, enjoy, and compete. Larry Gint signed that. So it's nice to even get a parent from Eau Claire that physically drives to Hudson to drop off a note on behalf of the girls. So I'll have Anna and Taylor say a few words, and thanks for having us here today.
Okay. Once again, I'm Taylor. And out of the 4 years I've been on this team, my senior year definitely was the best year. Because we always go to the Green Bay tournament, but this year was different since we bonded like so well together and just had such a great time. And not only the Green Bay tournaments we bond well, it's the spaghetti dinners, memories for like hotels, staying over, weekend tournaments, and just having fun and laughing at practice.
Going off what Taylor said, it was just a really fun season, and it was a great way to end it at state. And I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more for tennis. I just kind of went out my freshman year just trying to do something fun, and it turned out to be some of the best memories that I had.
Thank you.
All right. Open up to board comments for just in general for our student athletes that are here.
Mr. President.
Yes, Bruce.
Can we get some stats? You usually share some stats. You have total number of kids out. You know, any of that data right now in terms of?
Not on the
all right.
but I can get that.
No, I mean it's just impressive to see the continued excellence that Hudson represents every year, and this seems to be another fall season of that. So thanks for all the hard work and effort that the students put in, the hard work and effort that the coaches put in. I know the community greatly appreciates it, but also what a tremendous thing to take away for the students as well. So best wishes to those seniors.
I think that we have another award that.
One thing I'd like to add is that Hudson received the WIA Award of Excellence, which is like only 15 out of 512 schools in Wisconsin can receive, and it's like not through just winning games, but it's through like sportsmanship and how teams act when they're on the road and what other people see of Hudson. And it's also the great job that our athletic director does and all the coaches that they do that help us win this award. Thank you for letting us speak at the meeting.
Yeah. Is there any other comments? Otherwise, I just,
Oh.
Carrie, go ahead.
Oh.
Oh.
I have
So
one
ahead,
too.
Sue.
Gary? Oh, I just want to say again that I'm really impressed with the climate and atmosphere and sportsmanship of our athletic department. And of course, I'm appreciative of our director as well as the coaches. And I'm just amazed at your already life experience of looking at what you're doing in sports as accomplishments. The cup is always half full, even if, you know, it's not the gold or the silver. It's measured in ways that are really very important, I think, in your, you know, your experience and your journey in sports. So I'm just sitting here, big smile on my face and feeling really good about our athletic program. So thank you.
Yes, and I just wanted to thank the students for coming out and representing your sports. I know in the venue we couldn't get all of our participants. We got hundreds of people out for fall sports. But just want to thank you for your participation, what you do, not just for the district, but what you're doing for yourself, and recognizing that you guys are student athletes, you're students first. And I think it's great that you started off the presentation with those people who have the academic honors, because that's what, you know, school is there first, but the athletics part also teaches some great lessons. And, you know, we get all ranges of performance. It's not just, you know, recognizing the sport that got, you know, the state championship or runner-up or whatever the case may be, because there's different ways of measuring success. And we've got, you know, a group of people who haven't been out for a sport very long, and you get great improvement during the year. But some of these skills that you're learning, it's not just the athletic, the sport itself, the technical skill. And some of these sports, like our football players, many of them are not going to play another down after they graduate high school. But yet our swimmers and our tennis players and our cross-country people, those are skills that they can do for the rest of their life. But you're going to always have those memories of what it was like to be in athletics and having represented Hudson. So thank you for your participation and for doing us proud. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. President, I would pipe in just with one more thing. You guys do a great job representing the school when you're on the field, and informal ways you go out and you visit younger students, I know, in schools, and that's fantastic. And I just want to say you probably don't know the extent to which those younger students notice you when you're out in community wearing your gear representing Hudson High School. And again, I am just so impressed with the way that you hold yourselves when you maybe aren't thinking about the fact that you're representing Hudson High School and Hudson Athletics out in community, whether you're at the grocery store or just wherever, because those younger kiddos, man, do they notice when you're out there wearing your football, baseball gear. They notice how you act and want to grow up to be like you, and you are just such great examples of student athletes out in the community. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, and I guess echo that sentiment too, is looking at this award of excellence. It really says a lot about our program. It's not just, you know, one person wins that award. We win that award because all of you take ethics and leadership and character and sportsmanship to the next level. And when we all do that, then we get the recognition. And I'm just as proud about getting that award of excellence as I am our state championships and our section championships and so forth. Thank you for keeping that in mind. And remember that beyond your high school years, that ethics and sportsmanship are they're as much important as, you know, making the basket or, you know, sinking the putt. So, all right. All right. Thank you very much for coming. All right. Do we have any citizens' requests to speak about non-action items? All right. Can you turn it down so that we stay awake? All right. I'll call again for citizens' requests to speak about non-action items. Now that the room is cleared a little bit, I think we will move on then to superintendent's reports. Set your watches. Nick, go.
Says the guy that just gave a 10-minute monologue. Yeah. I'll give him some of my time, too. Couple items I'm going to touch on, and I'll be as brief as I can. Construction update. What you see on the screen is probably the big part of the construction update that we want to address. It is the most up-to-date, most current phasing plan that also will drive our school calendar conversation that Dave will be talking about a little bit later in the meeting. Couple things that are happening. If you haven't been by the high school lately, most of those areas in green on there, with the exception of the area M&N around the gym, all of that other steel is already set. You can really see the footprint of that area. It's really kind of a neat thing. If you have an opportunity, please get over there. We do have our construction committee meeting tomorrow. It'll be at 11:30. It's at the trailer, the Krause Anderson trailer on the site. If there are any additional board members who want to come, I know Carrie is going to be subbing for Rob, and I believe Sue and Bruce will be there. But if anybody else would like to come, you're always welcome. Is
that a permanent change to the 11:30 time?
We're trying to move that meeting up because unlike the design days when we were going all day long in those meetings, we're either going to try to look to maybe go earlier in the morning or this 11:30 to 12:30 time, try to work with the members of the committee what makes their schedule work the best. So we'll kind of see what happens. Tomorrow it's from 11:30 to 12:30, because then at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon we'll start our walkthrough. What we're going to do is to try to ensure a smooth April through November timeframe, which is when the bulk of the construction will be happening inside of the building. We're going to go through every room again that hasn't been remodeled yet and make sure that the scope that has been defined in the drawings, because there's almost 1,500 pages of blueprints for this building. We're going to make sure the scope of what's been defined in the drawing matches what we talked about in the design meetings and things, and make sure we're all on the same page. I anticipate that meeting going from about 2 tomorrow afternoon till probably 10 tomorrow night as we make it through all the spaces. You're always welcome to join us at any point, but it is a long walk. I think the chair of the construction committee is required to be there for the whole meeting. No, so we needed to move this meeting up a little bit and get that done. A couple things I want to touch base on is the auditorium is really coming along. Should be able to hit that December 12th date, which they told us on here. The steel, the last part of steel that needs to be delivered to the site is basically that southeast corner, the M&N, which is the indoor track, the extension of the gym, and then the weight and fitness area. And that should be start to see that showing up on site here in the next week or so, and they'll start getting that set. As far as the phasing goes, a couple things to keep in mind. So the trailers or the mobile classrooms have been delivered today, and actually I think they were all set up as far as fastened together. And what it is it's not probably how you remember mobile classrooms back if you ever had to experience them. They actually run the classrooms are actually perpendicular to the mobile, so it takes. There's a center hallway. They're all joined together, and there's a center hallway. So when you actually walk into the mobiles, it'd be like looking down a hallway that has 3 classrooms on each side. So they should be quite nice. They are air conditioned, obviously heated. So over the next week or so, that's when they start running all the power and the intercom systems and fire alarm system all to them. And then they also have to build the handicap accessible ramps and things along those lines. So we would imagine we would count on probably sometime in December that we'll start having staff moving into those, and that'll allow us to do some swing stuff. Gary's already kind of gone through this from Krause Anderson, but once that we have part of area E and part of area K, we're going to start remodeling as soon as December. Once those are done in March, then they'll move into those blue shaded areas in area K, and then also some of those hatched areas on the east side where they have to remove parts of the roof of the building. And so that'll happen probably the end of March, first part of April.
After basketball season.
After basketball season. But we're going to try to keep the gym box open as long as we can until the weather gets nice for PE reasons. And so you'll see it won't be an iron hallway because they wouldn't have any way to get the Connex boxes in and out of there, but it'll probably be one of those scaffold-built kind of anti-crush hallways like you see they have like downtown where they're doing skyscrapers and things like that, so we can get safe passage for the kids to get from the main part of the building into the gym spaces. There will be multiple kind of a phased turnover of the project. It's not totally outlined on here, but so the green parts of the plan, we'll start to see the new addition, different parts of the new addition turned over to us as soon as sometimes in June. And we'll start moving into some of those spaces. And then with the last part being turned over to us, which is in Area K, some of that yellow area in the center of Area K won't be turned over to us until November sometime next fall. But probably 95% of the building will be done by the time we start school next year. So construction-wise, we're working through these different challenges as we have. We've had parents that have had some questions about air quality and things along those lines. We are following all of the OSHA requirements we need for an occupied building. We're following the city requirements. If there are areas that are, dusty or things like that, we're bringing in HEPA filters and things along those lines. So, and we're keeping the building warm, sometimes too warm. We had one room today that we had a little malfunction of the heat, and it got to about 95 degrees. So, we were able to move that class to a different location. So no, it was we had some water and it was kind of a sauna room. So, but we're working through those items, and right now one of our focuses is going to shift to the logistics of all these movements, and the when you think about the whole East Wing units J and D up there. So all of that furniture has to come out of those spaces for them to demo and remodel it, but yet there's a large portion that won't be ready yet. So where are we going to put all this stuff? And then how does that transition, and how do we do all these different things? So we're working through the logistics, because you think about this summer, there were a lot of logistics, but that impacted 18 classrooms. We'll, I think, be impacting about 90 classrooms this summer. So there's a lot of different moving pieces. So I think we have a good team. I think we have a good plan, and we'll get there. So any questions about construction updates as it relates to the high school project?
So
Okay.
did I hear that December 12th is that deadline that would include the auditorium and where the new...
So the auditorium will be turned over to us December 12th, and then that other mauve area there is the old media center. It'll actually become temporary cafeteria space as they get ready to take some of the existing cafeteria and turn that into the new choir facility. And so that temporary cafeteria space, it'll be warm, it'll be dry, it'll be lit, and that's probably about where it ends. I mean, it's temporary, and so we did have a price to paint the plywood temp walls and things like that, and for about $8,000 or $9,000, we thought, you know what, we can look at plywood for a few months. It'll be just fine, and not spend the extra money on that. And so, so that'll be opening up here about in December, about the same time the auditorium does.
And the temp classrooms, right now, the plan would be to not use them in the fall, but
Correct.
We're going to revisit that in the spring just to see how things are going, or during the summer.
We'll know. We'll have a pretty good handle on things probably by June on where we're sitting and how the summer's going to play out.
And if school's done, we got May 22nd. If you could scroll up for that schedule, we got May 22nd, which is when last day of school, and we got the last area starting June 18th. Why wouldn't that be starting May 22nd if the kids are out of school?
So what has to happen first in May 22nd is that's the first thing that happens over there is the demolition of that area. And so
that's the northeast corner.
That's
but
the northeast
last
corner.
section is the southwest corner.
Yep. So as soon as the demo contractor gets done demoing that northeast corner, then they'll travel down to the southwest corner and start demoing that area as well. But there's not a way to do them kind of both at the same time. Those are what we hope are conservative time frame estimates, and that's what Krause Anderson has said. They're conservative. The one thing that is happening that's been sped up is that bathrooms right by the main auditorium there, the main bathrooms, those are being remodeled right now, and those should open at the same time the auditorium opens. So those are currently being done right now.
Any other questions on the construction update then?
Mr. President?
Yes.
So I know we'll talk a little bit about this. Jamie already talked about the temp classrooms, final date November 30th, which is, it's good to see that we're getting better visibility on that, right? I mean, I think we came out of the gates, we were aggressive and we're hopeful to try and get done at the start of the school year, found some things inside. recognize that that's maybe not quite achievable, which is, again, I think okay. I think we're still done much faster than we originally had anticipated at the time when we went out for the initial bonding. So that's still should be viewed very positively. And I think we need to make sure that we're looking at it positively as well, because there's a tremendous amount of work being done here to get this building renovated, and still coming out with something that's going to be done relatively early into the school year. So it's good to see that, and hopefully as we get through this, we can maybe even improve upon that as well. I think this is probably a doable schedule, right?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty doable schedule. I mean, barring some unforeseen circumstances and things like that. But the big thing is weather should not be a factor for us next summer when the bulk of the work's being done, and we're almost to the point, we're getting really close to where weather shouldn't be a factor for us on the outside, because like I said, probably by middle of December, all of the structure itself should be up.
Including the roof?
Including the roof should be on it. Now, it may not be, a watertight roof, but they should be up, and will be enclosed at least temporarily with temp walls and things like that. So we should be in a pretty good spot.
And that also then should help us, which I'm sure we'll talk about later with the school year and the calendar, because I know that's been up for discussion here quite a bit as well. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Lastly, Carrie was just wondering how that heat malfunction can maybe happen here in this room right now. So if anyone,
I haven't heard any teeth chattering yet.
Yeah, we have.
Well, she's got gloves on over here, so it's okay. She's got
It makes
it
the touchpad kind of hard to operate. So the next thing I have on my list of items is the notice of school board election. This will be going in the paper the week of, I think, Thanksgiving. And so the election date is April 3rd, 2018. There are 3 openings, 3 board members: incumbent Rob Brown, incumbent Sandy Gerke, and incumbent Sue Katas. Couple things that people have to declare their candidacy by Tuesday, January 2nd. And they do that right here up with Tim Miner. And then it's also on the statement, notice that if a primary is necessary, it would be held on Tuesday, February 20th. And so a primary is driven if we had more than 6 candidates running for these 3 positions, then we would have a primary to get the candidate count down to 6. So any questions about school board elections coming up?
I have one. I thought I saw somewhere something about a December 22nd date. And incumbents,
So incumbents
what does that mean?
have to announce their intention to either run or not run. Is that right, Tim? To not run by December. So if you're for sure not going to, which I think would be kind of the same thing, by December 22nd, you have to say if you're not going to run. So then it's assumed that if you don't announce it by then, that we have our hooks into you for another run. So,
Any decisions made by the 2 people here in that regard? No. Yeah.
My husband and I are talking.
All right.
He wants to go into the garage and throw out all of my yard signs.
You're not the only one that has that spousal conversation, so yes.
I told him just cool it.
yeah.
So it is.
All right, very good.
Any questions? So that is the school board election update. Legislative update. I think, as you all are probably aware, the legislature adjourned for the remainder of the year. Just, I think it was last week. Although they're still circulating some bills. Some of them are kind of troubling bills. But the plan, from what I could read, is that they'll be back in session for 2 weeks in January, 2 weeks in February. But then I think they're going to try to wrap things up pretty early next year because it is an election year. So there's not a whole lot to really report at this point. I know Jamie's got something he wanted to talk about with legislative advocacy because he attended the meetings over in Stevens Point on November 4th. And so he can talk a little bit more about maybe some plans that way. But I think the big thing with the legislature is, we're pretty happy with what we got funding wise. It's one of probably the biggest shots in the arm we've had funding wise in probably 6-7 years. Yeah, so it's that was helpful. Even one of the problems, as you all know, with the budget, with our growing property values, we still ended up with a net loss in state aid, but it would have been much worse had we not gotten the funding that they approved. So one of the other things with the legislative update, it does look like Senator Harsdorf, who's the senator that represents our school district, our area that our school district sits in, has been appointed by the governor to be the new Secretary of Agriculture. And so there will be, I believe, a special election coming up to fill her seat. So that will be kind of an interesting thing to watch. Senator Harsdorf has been somebody that, even though I've only been here 2.5 years, has been easy to talk to for me. She would call me on legislative issues that came up, ask questions, ask what my thoughts were. One of the most recent ones were the bidding bill that's kind of circulating in the legislature right now, and as they're trying to get school districts to fall under the same bidding requirements that the municipalities are. And she wanted to know my take on it. So she will be missed because I always thought of her as a friend of public education and someone that was willing to listen to both sides of the issue. So it'll be interesting to see who replaces her in the special election. So that's all I have for legislative update. And even though Jamie interrupted me with his own personal chime in for a while there, that was only 14 minutes.
All right. That's part of the
Can I
comes
just
with
say
the job.
something?
Yes.
Right, as of right now, 2 people have declared that they're going to run for her seat. One is Adam Jarko, who is an assemblyman from the Eastern District east of us, and the other one is Shannon Zimmerman, who was just recently elected from our assembly district. So both of them will be vying for Sheila Harsdorf's Senate seat. And I will tell you, I know both of them very well, and they are both very big education advocates. Both of them, especially Shannon Zimmerman. So that's just my input on the 2 candidates that will be trying to fill her seat.
Absolutely.
Interesting that means that there will be a primary. And we just refer folks who are watching this and, all the people that follow, because, it is important. And there's a deadline for filing the nomination papers that's coming up very quickly. There will be a primary that will be very short. There's like a 3 or 4 weeks before the primary, and then a general election that's a special date. And obviously, if one of those 2 gentlemen were to get it, then that would create an opening in legislature again in this area and would require somebody to file for that, and then they would have another election. So using that as Dr. Ouellette's segue into legislative advocacy, it is something that is important. I went over to Stevens Point, I guess it was last weekend or weekend before last, and it was a pretty good turnout. But it was good to talk to 2, there's only like a couple legislators in the whole legislature on both houses that actually have served on school boards. So to have both of those gentlemen there, that was good to hear their input. And they very much encouraged the people that were there to keep up legislative advocacy. It's not just something we look at every 2 years when the budget comes up and we try to see how much aid there's going to be, because there's going to be up years, there's going to be down years, but there's all kinds of other policy issues that some were squeezed into the budget and some that get voted on the other 18 months of the legislative cycle. So actually this budget cycle kind of went almost a full year, but the point being is that from now on, from this point forward, we are going to have legislative advocacy at every work session that we have, and we'll have an update. Out of that, we may or may not have a resolution, but we would still, just like our other business that we do as a school board, we have the work sessions, which I think have been working out well, as meeting with the board over the committees that we used to have. We've avoided repetition, but we get in depth. Those work sessions we've averaged, I think, closer to the 3-hour time period, but it makes our it gives us usually a 2 or 3 week period to prepare for this action meeting, and sometimes we'll have a resolution that we'll take up as a board, sometimes we won't, but one of the things that I want to continue is keeping everyone apprised of what's going on, and then informing the district, what our district position might be on whatever is coming up, because some of the stuff comes up very quickly, and it can be a matter of a couple weeks, but generally we try to keep ahead of trends that are happening, and it's just a very important thing. Some districts really get into it, just so happens the ones closer to Madison, because they can send board members over to testify and so forth. It's harder to do that because we're lucky if we get a hearing that's in River Falls, and then that would take time out of your day to go testify. But there's other things we can do, like resolutions, but also ideas. And that's why I think we're going to get the WASB delegate selection. That's just one avenue for us to participate. But some of these districts get really involved, and we'll have our choice as a board, as a whole. We do this as a whole. It's not just one person that's driving this, but I think it's incumbent on us. Because right now, we've enjoyed, 10 years now of under levy? 11?
Yeah, more than that. Probably 40.
Yeah, but our cumulative under levy is, I've been told, was over 100 million, 103 million going into this year.
Yep.
And we're one of the very, very few districts that have, any cumulative under levy over $1 million, let alone 100 million. And so, while it may not seem to be something that affects us so much, like revenue caps and so forth, that day, we've seen that day occur in this district, and it may come again. So I think it's important that we look at all of this stuff, and there's going to be constantly subjects taken up in the legislature for, this. They're even looking at new way of funding schools, and talk about, that's going to raise a lot of hornet's nests throughout the state, and makes a lot of divisions, rural versus urban, and
It's a really important conversation.
right. And how schools get funded, because at one time it was the solemn promise that we were 70% was going to be not on the property tax, and we've seen some districts that are even higher than that, and we've seen our numbers flip. But out of that, we can choose as a board how we want to vote on these things. I just think I happen to be personally more of an advocate of local control, and not have Madison, dictating so much what we do or dependent on Madison. But anyway, that's what I did for a Saturday. It was my first white knuckle drive of the season without my snow tires on my car. So small band of snow that there was on the highway to Stevens Point. But anyway, made it back safe and sound. Now, Policy Series 800 is up.
Mr. President, may I
Yes.
just ask you, or ask a question? It's curious to me, this kind of, I don't know what to call it, a trend or a philosophy or whatever, about public school kind of sometimes having sort of a, it used to be like, rah-rah, go to school, public school, and there's just a different tone. I'm wondering if sometime, maybe at one of our work sessions, if we had a few extra minutes, if we could just, maybe Dave has some resources or something, but it'd be interesting just to engage in a little conversation about, where it's going and what's causing some of the changes for how we look at public school education and so on, and,
Well, certainly, yeah. I think
like
that
a philosophical kind of thing, maybe.
Yep, and that can be worked into that whole legislative act. That's where legislative ideas come out of, is public policy generally. But certainly, that's a great point. Any other questions on that? I didn't mean to, but I want to keep it moving, so we'll go to Policy Series 800. This is our second reading.
Well,
Or
actually,
part
this
two.
will be part 2. And so this is this is something that we typically have done at the work session, but based on scheduling, this is your first introduction to the 800 series.
We have
part 2.
bifurcated the 800 series for you,
Yes.
Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so then I can go into as great of detail as you would like for approximately 20 policies, or I can give a more high-level summary. And my plan is to do a high-level summary, and you can cut me off at any point if you have any questions. Probably not even on this one. I will do my best to talk as fast as possible, yes. Draft policy 823, access to public records. So the primary change here is in the first page, designation local public office. This is something that needs to be complied with state law, or we need to modify to comply with state law, where it's not just the superintendent that's a local public official, but it's also the positions identified herein, and it specifically within the statute 19.32 1 DM lays out what local public official is. So we designate that in here. The other pieces, we're just fine tuning some cleanup. We worked with Shannon Lewis and her firm on just a couple of modifications, nothing substantive. Page 3, you'll see records retention. It just talks about our compliance with the Wisconsin Department of Administration's guidelines on school districts record retention. It's good to have that site within the policy, so that's why we have it there. The other thing we've laid out is for the cost of copying, so this is a process, the fee schedule thing that's attached to the policy. We clarify that it's 25 cents if printed pages, and then articulate our practice of 15 cents per page if electronic copies. So other than that, it's just some minor modifications for 823, and I'll just keep going unless you guys stop me.
Mr. President, just a quick question of clarification. So if we have a question about the substance of one of these, this would be the right time to raise it. But if we've got like a tweak or a catch, that's just an email it because there's plenty of time later, correct?
So because we had kind of a light meeting tonight, we thought we'd do kind of this first kind of talk through. So then you'll see them again on the work session coming up here in about 2 weeks, I think, just after Thanksgiving. And if you have some additional questions or things like that, or tweaks, we can address them then too. Yep.
That's the reason for having the two different readings, is so that suggestions can be made for possible changes. But this is kind of an introduction to the topics and the various.
No action tonight, yeah.
Right.
I just have one question about the charges for this.
Yes.
Is there anything in here that references school board members being charged for copies if they ask for something through a public records request?
That we typically, well, we do have language in our the 100 series that talks about board members. We tend to work with board members to provide them records upon request. I don't.
No, it doesn't. So as a board member, you're entitled to records in the district without charge, unless for some reason it's something that's not related to your job as a board member. So if you, as a board member, want records that isn't something that would be in the normal scope of the board, then it would fall under a regular public open records request.
Yes.
If it falls under your scope as a board member, then we would make as many copies and give you as much material as we possibly can.
I'm only asking because the first 3 years I was on this board and I asked for copies of things to bring myself up to date on what was going on the board, I was charged for those copies. And I got in a big dispute with the superintendent about it, and it didn't matter, I was still charged. So I was wondering if it would be wise to put something in a policy somewhere that specifically talks about that, so that 5 or 10 years down the road, when I'm not on the board and we maybe have a different superintendent and there's a different situation, it will be really clear in our policies what kind of copies a board member could ask for without having to go through the hassle of paying for them.
I want to say that we did embed that within our new policies in the 100 series.
In the 100 series?
I will research that and get back to you, but
Thank
I do
you.
believe that we added specific language about that in
Okay,
there.
thank you very much. On page 2 of this?
Page 2, yeah, it's a permissible fees. It specifically addresses board members.
Okay.
And just like if it pertains to your board work rather than just.
Thank you.
But I will also check the 100 series.
All
and
right.
we'll
I
get
just
back to you. Yep,
I just
good
thought
question.
it's best to have it really clearly written for the future.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we're on to draft policy 830. So this is really minor modifications. I don't really need to speak to it unless you guys have any specific questions. It was just updated in 2013. So there's nothing really of substance. It's just a couple clarifying points. Policy 831, tobacco use on school premises. This was just modified in 2014, but I do recommend several revisions. consistent with the prohibition of tobacco use of all people on school grounds, whether it's tobacco, electronic cigarettes, or other nicotine products, not used as part of a smoking cessation program. So just clarifying that that's applicable to everybody on school premises. So that would be the modification for that. 832, weapons on school premises. This is a significant rework, primarily to address both the definition of firearm, the destructive device or dangerous weapon. I used a lot of language here of WASB's recommended policies. I think they had 3 or 4 sample policies, but then trying to combine what you can see in the red line version up there, that trying to combine what we had as part of it as well. We do add number 4 here, weapons that are registered and handled by district security officers may be authorized by a superintendent and designee. We had general language to that effect in the past, but laying it out in a little more detail. But again, it's all, those items are all pursuant to superintendent's approval. The other pieces go into a little bit more about what happens if someone has it in the different ways, whether it's a student, an employee, or any other person that comes onto our grounds, consequences for violating this prohibition. Any questions on 832? I'll keep going. Brand new policy, 833, public attendance at school events. We don't currently have this language. We had a bit of a hodgepodge in a couple different sections in the past, and reworking it significantly to put it in here. It kind of does a do's and don'ts. We certainly want attendance at public events, but at the same time we want some parameters. Number 1 is pretty broad, so they can't engage in any of those inappropriate behaviors, that we have the authority to remove people, and then what the process is there, and that nobody can interfere, there can't be force. Another significant addition, which we surprisingly did not have in the past, was specific discussion or specific language outlining our responsibilities under the ADA and Section 504, the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. We will be working towards, on the second page, quite significantly, we'll be putting on all notices, signs, schedules, and other communications about school events, language about compliance with the ADA, and if a reasonable accommodation is needed, to inform the district administrator of that need 24 hours in advance. So we'll be working with our administrative teams upon approval, if the board approves this language, on embedding that language in all of our notices, et cetera, going forward. So again, this is movement towards compliance with the ADA. Then the board is aware of, this is about the audio video recordings and about copyrighted material, just general language, but just kind of putting people on notice essentially of those areas of concern. So this is brand new policy, 833. 834, use of school forest. We don't have any language right now for a policy in this area, but we do apparently have 3 school forests. So this just gives the board authorizes administration, if need be, authorizes administration to post those forests. 850, public solicitations on school premises. This has not been, this is one of the 1990 policies that hasn't been revised for a very long time. So really my recommendation is WASB's version, and delete what our current language is, replace it with this language that just lays out a little bit more detail in terms of the selling, promoting of goods and services on district property, when it's appropriate, when it's not. This is one that Tracy Abishaleen often works with buildings to assist with as we go forward, but it's just kind of a do's and don'ts when it comes to solicitations on school premises. I'll keep going. 852, distribution of non-school materials. This is another one that Tracy Abishaleen works on quite a bit. We significantly are revising it. Shana Lewis did provide a lot of feedback on this particular one, which is why we've deleted the first couple paragraphs. She said it's just really not necessary and makes it confusing as a policy. So we've deleted those and then clarified when it can and can't occur on school property. An example of this would be like Girl Scouts, would be Boy Scouts, would be a lot of different nonprofit type of organizations that are asking to hand out information on sign-up opportunities. And so that's when we may hand out those type of materials. And then again, we lay out the process that community members who want to distribute this follow. But we do significantly limit those materials that go home to families. And so that's what this describes.
Mr. President, I just have
Yes.
one. So where do you anticipate problems here?
I can let Tracy speak to that because she handles these requests.
I don't anticipate any problems with the language here. This language pretty much aligns with the practice that we've been using for years. So when requests are made, we look at several things. One, is it a nonprofit organization? Is it an organization that the event is supporting families and youth? And that's our primary criteria for looking at why we would distribute.
Okay.
And we can get into more examples probably in a work session. But,
Sure.
There's a few things that come to the top of my mind, but I won't get into those details now. So.
Okay. Well, and if you guys would like any modifications to these policies, they're your policies, and I'm happy to make them. These were just, what I came up with after, and Tracy and I worked together on developing these. So, but we're certainly open to ideas. Draft policy 860, visitors of school. This is a complete revamp as well to an existing policy, significantly modifying what the current practice is. The visitors schools, we do have both a rule as well as a policy. We'll continue to do so, but the focus of this policy is much more on the general environment of the building, of each building, and about access to the buildings and when there's appropriately limitations and why, and when there shouldn't be. Really, the rule that's accompanying this is pretty specific about general requirements for the visitors. It's kind of a nuts and bolts of what we expect our visitors to do. Part of the policies, the whole point is to put the public on notice of the expectations of this interaction. And I think that that's what the rule really accomplishes, is if you go to one of our buildings, this is what you can expect to find. You'll have to sign in at the office. You'll have to wear a visitor's badge. You'll have to, unless it's like a school event, which it even carves out here too. Like if you go to the school for a concert, you don't have to. But if you go there to visit with your child, you do have to. And really, I think does a nice job, and this again is WASB's recommendation. It does a nice job of laying out those procedures as well as the why behind it. There is language in here which WASB recommends in terms of the board member visits, just laying it out, just so that there's a recognition of the little different hat that you guys wear, depending upon the situation. But any questions?
Yeah. Mr. President, I have a question. On the Board of Education members visiting, can you maybe just cite 3 things that would be like sacred cows we shouldn't do or something like that? Where you get kind of more and more comfortable when you're in this job, but on the other hand, there's still one art room I haven't visited, but I'm not just going to go in that building and stick my nose in. Hopefully somebody will invite me. But but can you just give us 2 or 3 places where, might get in trouble?
Well, I think a concern, something that wouldn't be concerning would certainly be any kind of school events. Or if you give the administrator notice, the district administrator or superintendent notice of your pending visit, that's always best. It would be more the unannounced you show up to a building where the principal or someone doesn't know you're there, and then you try to gain access to a classroom, or you try to gain access where the question may be why, because it is important to remember we all report to the superintendent, but also you guys have the overarching power as the board. And so to keep that in mind, that's why I think WASB recommends kind of laying out the different types of capacities that you could operate under. I'm trying to think of a good example to answer your question, trying to think of a good example.
We need to volunteer for junior achievement.
That would be a perfectly appropriate, yes, one. But then I'm guessing in that type of situation, you would sign in to the office, and so that you gain access to the building in that way, and then you're identified as that volunteer as compared to you're not wearing your board member hat at that particular moment in time. You're wearing the volunteer hat.
Probably coming in through the back door with your badge and roaming the halls is not acceptable.
That might, yes, there we go. That could be a good example.
I think that a board member should have to do the same thing that a visitor would have to do. Any parent. Because the administrators in our buildings need to know who's in the building.
Certainly.
And even though I'm a board member and so are they, it would not be proper for any one of us to walk in that building and try to access a classroom without the principal or an administrator knowing we're there.
Right, which is what the language
And
is.
that's what it says in here,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, that would really be way off base if somebody tried to do that.
Yeah.
We really need to follow the same rules with the badge so that everybody knows we're there. If you want to have access to a specific classroom, you know, if she likes art, wants to go look at art. I love music and love the band programs and things. If I want to go watch and do something, I would go through the principal or through the administrative office and get the badge, sign in, just like anybody else.
I would think an example of like a routine presence of the board would be like your construction meetings. I don't know if you're in the building. I think you used to be in the building, in the high school building, where it's a predetermined date and time where everybody knows that this is what's going to occur. That's perfectly acceptable. That's one situation where you wouldn't necessarily have to go sign in. I'm presuming. But then other than that, yeah, it's always best practice to make sure that the administrators in the building. Yeah.
It's a real courtesy to the administrators to know if we're going to be in any of these buildings. And I think that if we just go wandering around the buildings, if you think about this, I mean, the teachers know who we are.
Certainly.
And they're going to look at us like, what is that board member doing here? What are they doing in my room? Are they here to critique me? Are they watching me?
Mhm.
That's not fair to the teachers, not fair to the staff. They need to know we're there and why we're there. My speech.
Nope, that's consistent with this language where, you know, we make sure that, I think the WSB wants us to lay this out so that there is that recognition of the difference between a board member and a regular visitor. But again, if you're coming as as an exempt type of activity with a concert or something like that, then you're just, it's a different situation. Yep.
Mr. President, quick
Yes.
question of clarification. The difference between a policy and a rule. So we have 860 and we have 860 rule. Are they both board approved? Do lots of rules exist and we just aren't looking at them because they're not new?
If it's not, this would be one that would be linked to the policy procedure document itself. We don't have any, I would say, at least I'm not aware of any specific administrative rules that aren't, that we currently have, I would say, linked here. Like there's not this whole other volume of rules that we go by or that govern our behaviors on a day-to-day basis. There just aren't.
So I think her question is, why do we have a rule if we've got already the policy that says essentially the same thing? Why do we have a
think
rule?
this was one where I would say that a little bit more information, again, providing it to the public in the same spot that they'd be looking at the policy is informative. WASB also recognizes it as an area where oftentimes boards do have a rule accompanying a policy, but it has the same weight in terms of our obligation to comply with it.
You got to remember that the board rules it's almost like a set of procedures developed by the board, whereas administrative procedure is developed by the administration. So you're detailing how you want this carried out, this policy carried out as the board versus say the principal or the superintendent or designee will create a set of policy or procedures to implement this. So the thing that's confusing as you're looking at these through the Google Docs is the rule came before the policy. So if you go to the policy is pretty short. You know.
Oh, it's alphabet. Okay.
You know, so the policy is less than a page long, and then the rules are 6 pages long. So.
And if you look at our policy review cycle document, that lays it out in the proper order, is that it would be following the 860 policy.
And is this WASB language?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I think we tweaked it a little bit, but vast
If you could
majority
just
of
say
it-
that, like when you introduce these, as we're going through them, and just
Yep,
say
I
if it's a WASB one, then it's probably going to be something that we don't, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Proposal to delete 870.1. I guess I should go to 870 first. Sorry, I'll do 870 first. So public complaints and suggestions. This is also a significant revamp where in the past we only had language specific to, really it's the where it starts, the normal channel for complaints concerning school personnel shall be from complainant to employee to principal to supervisor to superintendent to board. That's the heart of the problem with our existing policy, is that that's all it says. It doesn't lay out any process associated with that. So anytime we would have a complaint, we would have to create that process. This significantly redoes it from the perspective of laying out what the process, what the first level, second level, third level, fourth level would be in the event there is any kind of public complaint or suggestion. And it lays out the fact, too, that we have two other policies, 522 and 330.2, pertaining to staff as well as learning resources. So if you have concerns about or staff members have concerns, or the public has any concerns about learning resources, that's where you go, that's where you look at. If there's other types of public complaints and suggestions, you look here. So that's part of the redo of all the policies to make sure that they're aligned and not inconsistent with each other. And so that being said, then you look at this, the first section here is guidelines for matters regarding a staff member, then it's guidelines for matters regarding district services or operations, and then guidelines for matters regarding the educational program. So it just kind of lays this out. This is not WASB, but this is one that I worked with Shayna on. It's one that she regularly recommends. This specific format in terms of the process comes from Wisconsin Dells. But again, we tweaked it to comply or to meet Hudson's needs and certainly our language. But
Mr. President, can I ask one question? On that? In that first blue paragraph, do you have examples of appropriate harassment?
Do I have a typo?
No, in the third sentence, well, the third line.
From harassment, I guess.
Or inappropriate something, but.
Okay, I can look at that word. Yes, all harassment's bad. So we will work on that. Okay. So with the creation of this, then my recommendation would be to delete 870.1, which is really general language, just about school personnel, instructional materials that the board is really, it says channels of communication as defined in the rules adopted by the board will be utilized in the handling of complaints. Well, no other rules were ever adopted by the board, so it makes it really cumbersome to figure out what that would mean. So new policy 870 really does away with the need for 870.1. I'm almost done, I promise. 880, relations with governmental agency. Very broad language. I'm just talking about our need to cooperatively work with all levels of government. 892.1, student teachers and interns, just modifies language to reflect current practice in terms of, and I see we already need to change this. I should have changed the director of instruction to assistant superintendent. Depending upon how we want to phrase that. But really, a change that's occurred over the past, well, before I was here several years, is that student teacher requests and interns go through the HR office. We kind of use us as the filtering point to distribute those requests to the buildings instead of going directly to the buildings, because that can prove cumbersome for the building principals. Relations with colleges and universities, 892 is brand new language. It just talks about the cooperation, and this kind of flows well with the student teachers. So I should have covered that. Sorry, it's in a different order in my book here. It just talks about the collaboration with colleges and how really we do rely upon them and they rely upon us to have a mutually beneficial relationship when it comes to interns and student teachers. Policy 893, relations with educational researchers. This is a modification to a 1990 policy, which really doesn't require many changes. It just talks about the importance of research and education, and that basically the application will go to the superintendent if they seek to do any such research involving our our staff, students, or facilities in the Hudson School District.
Mr. President, I have just a little question on that. Then who owns the results, the written results, and I can't remember the legal language that's related to protecting
the intellectual property.
Intellectual property.
It would be the researchers, but we're provided with the results, is my understanding of how it typically occurs, depending upon the nature of the research project or who conducts the research project. If one of our staff members conducts that research project and we pay them to conduct that research project, then it would be owned by the district and not by that staff member.
I would tell you that, it's pretty rare that we would allow outside agencies to do research in the district. Sometimes we would approve, staff that maybe are working on a thesis or a dissertation to use non-identifiable data, aggregate data, things along those lines. But it's pretty rare that we allow district-specific data or individual student data. So that's why it ends up coming to my office.
And that's it. We survived the second part of the 800 series.
Okay, very good. We'll be discussing this more at our next work session if there's questions. At this time, I guess we have a choice. We could continue to go through, but in the interest of personal comfort, I would take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll begin with Dave's Build Your Own Curriculum update. All right?
All right, we'll reconvene the meeting. Pick up, our agenda is under reports.
We have a report from Dave Grambo.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to provide a process update and a quick demonstration of Build Your Own Curriculum. You may remember last spring we talked a little bit about some curriculum review process updates, and part of that was the use of a curriculum mapping and warehouse software package, Build Your Own Curriculum. We've done a lot of work to move that forward and wanted just to get you up to speed so you understand where we are. There's a big list of, actually, Tim, if you want to go to the other document first, the overview document. So that would be, no, it's all right. I'll let it go. So on this document that you're going to see, you'll see a list of many of the factors that helped us decide that Build Your Own Curriculum was the way to go. Instead of reading through all of that information, I'm going to describe it in 3 big buckets. So the first big bucket is the teacher bucket, and that is how Build Your Own Curriculum lets teachers have all of their stuff in one place. So they're not chasing around 3-ring binders and Google Drive docs and docs on the network folder. It puts everything in one place and organizes it for them. The second big bucket would be the administrative bucket. And what that allows us to do is see everything in one place. So we have a really good understanding of the scope and sequence in all of our curriculum, pre-K all the way through 12. Also in that bucket are some of the tools. So it's not just a place to hold everything, it also provides tools that we can use to map. So whenever we measure student progress, we measure that against standards. This allows us to look at those standards pre-K through 12, make sure that we don't have any gaps, and if we find gaps, we can address them. A lot of great tools that way. And then finally, there's the parent and community bucket. And Build Your Own Curriculum allows for a sort of a public portal that allows community members and parents to click in and get a pretty good idea of everything that happens, curricularly speaking, in the school. So that's what's described there in that document. Tim, if you could scroll down a little bit, you'll see a timeline for implementation, the beginning of the next page there. So you can see we started with 612 social studies and 612 science. When we go through the demonstration, you'll see most of that information is in there. There's a few exceptions. I'll explain what those are. And then there we are in November for the status update for the school board. And then you can see the other areas that will be entering into Build Your Own Curriculum and the timeline associated with that entry. The goal is that by the end of the year, we'll have a full representation of the current status of our K-12 or pre-K-12 curriculum in that system and publicly available. So what I'll do now is we're going to have Tim flip over, and I'm going to demonstrate for you a little bit what that public portal will look like. First thing I want you to know as we look at this is not everything. There is more. It's not even all of 612 social studies and science. There's still some electives that need to go in, and there's still the AP courses that need to go in. They will be in shortly. So once we go public with this, it's as simple as I'll work with Tracy, we'll put the link on the website, and everything will be available. Once that happens, though, I would encourage anyone with interest to check on a periodic basis because things will change. As we finish up a course or a sequence, that will be entered, and then that'll just continue to grow. And like I said, by the end of the year, it will all be in there. Before I go into the demo, need to recognize a few people that have put a lot of work into this to make sure it happens. First and foremost, Sandy Kovac has done an amazing job working with the curriculum specialist, getting all of this in there. It's a lot of work. And then the curriculum specialist working with the teachers to coordinate and to clean things up. We had a situation, and it's not uncommon. I think most districts were in this situation. Technology was changing so quickly that the way we would house our curriculum changed. And every time it would change, we ended up with another system. So pulling it all together under one umbrella was quite an undertaking. So thank you to Sandy and the curriculum specialist who did a great job with that. So with that, what I'll do is just show you a few of the public sides of things so you can get a sense of what it's all about. It's relatively straightforward. Right now, the view you see is it's looking at courses by department. So you can sort by grade level, you can go by department, or you can go a course search. Like if a parent said, I just really want to know about algebra, you type in algebra, it'll pop up and you'll be able to dig in. But this quick view is just the beginning. We've decided upon looking at this, there's one change we want to make we realize will be important, especially for public and for parents, and that is to know which classes are electives and which are required. It's one thing to say that we understand that there are all these courses, but parents and community members would like to know what courses will all children go through, and then when do those choices come into play. So we're going to make that adjustment.
With like an asterisk if it's required?
Yeah, something like that. There's a few, we talked about elective and required, then we realized that the E and the R is used for something else. So we'll come up with a code that will be clear and not confused with some other code that we might have.
Could you just color code the courses, like one I think is required?
I don't think that color coding is an option within the system. I'm not sure. It's good. We can look into it, but I don't think I didn't see that anyway in any of the options. But we'll denote it and make sure that everyone is clear.
Sorry I interrupted.
No, that's all right. No problem. So I'm going to start with 7th grade social studies. So if you want to see what 7th grade social studies is all about, click on the link here and it pops up. The first thing you see when you go in there are all of the units. So here are 8 units that comprise the world studies in 7th grade. You can either go into any one of those units to get a better idea of what it's all about. I'll take a look at one. So we're going to go into Thinking Like a Historian, which is one of the initial experiences that the 7th grade students would have. And then we've got these 2 topics. So you can see the structure: course, then units, and then topics, and then finally down to the learning experiences. If we go here to how can we locate reliable sources, here are some different learning experiences. I'm going to go into review of primary and secondary resources. So this drills all the way down now. Now we're to what are the teachers going to be doing with the students in the classroom. This is an interesting one because it has the resources, which is it's fun to see how this all plays out. But we can see the learning target here. So this would be the what this specific lesson is aimed at the students being able to do when it's all said and done. And then in this one, there's actually a primary versus secondary resource. So this goes out to a presentation that would be used in the classroom. So a community member or family member would be able to drill all the way down to what that presentation would look like in the classroom. Again, the goal, part of that bucket that I talked about with community members and families is transparency. We want to make sure that we're completely transparent, that everything is out there, this is what we're doing, and here it is. So that is a quick look at that. I'm going to go back one step and show another view that I think is interesting. Actually, I'll go back in through department, going back into world studies, and I'm going to click on scope and sequence. Scope and sequence talks about what we teach and how far we teach, and then in what order we teach it. If you click on scope and sequence, this is a really nice view you get. See if I can get that a little bit bigger there. So you can see each one of those units and then the topics within. So it's your nice big broad overview of everything that occurs in that course. The other nice thing you see is the time frame. So we have an approximate number of instructional days that are applied to each one of those topics. Once we go into topic, it goes all the way down to that. So if there's a topic that has 1 day, you can compare that to other topics to get a sense of the balance that is being applied within each one of the courses. What I'm going to do, just so you can get a idea of how this might look in another area, I'm going to go into a science. So this is biology, 10th grade biology. Same sort of thing. We go in, we can see all the units. There are a lot in biology. If I click on scope and sequence, again, you're seeing each one of those units and the topics. This one is the point that you get a pretty good idea of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, because we can take a look here at, we've got, we'll use cell reproduction as an example. 10 days. Well, we have 7 different learning experiences or topics within that. So you can see we're talking about a day or maybe a day and a half for each one of those topics. So it gives you a pretty good idea. What we've agreed to do, we're not going to put at this point all of the learning experiences in, primarily just because of time. Going all the way to learning experience takes quite a bit of time, and that's not something we think topic is generally going to be sufficient. For those topics that we feel may be controversial, we're going to go all the way to learning experience, so you can drill down and see exactly what's happening in the classroom. That's just something that we committed to, and we think it's important to have that higher level of transparency on topics that may be considered controversial.
Mr. President, so when you say learning experience, are you talking about like a link to the PowerPoint that the teacher used presenting to class, or a link to the textbook pages they read, or what does that mean when we say learning experience?
That's a really good question, because that's a little jargony. It really just means the lesson. So a learning experience equates to the lesson. The resource then would be the PowerPoint or the textbook, which will also be delineated within the subject of learning experience. So once you get down to learning experience, it'll say, here are the materials used, and all that information would be there.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, with that, I'll just entertain any questions.
Well, just with assignments, like if for a certain lesson, like the student was to create a collage about what they learned, is that necessarily going to be on there, or is it just what the subject matter was that, and then it could be a quiz, it could be a project, it could be a presentation?
We can go all the way down to that level, but honestly, we would likely be using Google Classroom, which is a more day-to-day sort of experience. From a family perspective, I wouldn't anticipate family members going into this on a daily basis. They might say, oh, here's my child's schedule. I want to take a look at each one of their courses and get an idea what's going on. But then day to day, they would rely on Google Classroom or some of the other more personal interactions where you get an idea, this is the class, this is the assignment, here's when the quiz is. That would happen there.
We can already do that as parents today, right?
Do which part?
Go in and see what assignments they have, what they turn in, what they didn't turn in.
Depending on the teacher in the classroom at this point, this is going to offer that consistency. It's what's happening across the board.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Mr. President, three quick ones. Is this going to end up then being like, what used to be like a handout of syllabi for college classes? I mean, we'll know what's happening.
It will complement that. We are
Okay.
also requiring that syllabi will be distributed for each course.
Okay.
So, and that is just more transparency. We want to give,
Right.
we don't want to just necessarily expect that a parent or community member would know where to navigate. We also want to be proactive and just say up front, here are the primary topics and units.
Okay, and then in the the handout about build your own solid foundation, I don't know what you mean by allows you to house living, viable, distinct, what does that mean?
Yep,
house
so
living?
what that means is this is, we call it living because that link, although if we click on it, like if we click on this link, that will be open. In 3 weeks, if we change something or update, that will be there.
Okay.
Now, we won't be changing a unit midstream, but we will be adding more things. Then when we go through the curricular review process with the team of teachers and our curriculum specialists, if things change, it will be there. And the idea of a viable curriculum is to make sure that it's accessible for all students and it's all there. And again, not on a shelf collecting dust that might change each time we address it.
Okay, and then my last one is the one I sent to you by email. In what the teachers prepare, building their own curriculum, is there a place at the end of it where they list their resources, whether it's media resources or some scholarly paper, or, I mean, for me as a former teacher, those kinds of things are important, and I gave you kind of an example.
Sure.
But can you just comment on that?
Yeah, you bet. So a couple things. First of all, a teacher will not have the ability to post something onto Build Your Own Curriculum and have it automatically be live. It needs to go through an approval process. So once if a team of teachers are working on it, it would go to the teaching and learning department, and then we approve, and then it goes live, or we put it to the pending status to say, we're still looking at it, but we want everyone to be able to see what we're thinking along the way. So that approval process is part of it. When we go through PREP, our program review, which is like the curriculum review process, when we work through that, the selection of resources is part of that process. And then when we approve that, then we worked with teachers last year on this quite a bit. Once it's approved, then we're locked and loaded, we're ready to go. But if a teacher then has something else that they might want to bring to the table or bring to their students. Certainly, if it's just a minor extension from what they're doing, they have the ability to do that. If it is something that is potentially controversial, we have a policy, so they would have to act in accordance to that policy and bring that potentially controversial topic to the principal, and the principal would then bring it to teaching and learning, just to say, you know what, this fits and it makes sense and it doesn't essentially violate our equitable, reasonable, or developmental lenses that we've talked about before. Give it the approval, or we say, you know what, nope, that's not appropriate. We're not going to approve that.
Thank you.
Sandy, did you have any question?
This is,
Microphone.
this does not, what do we currently have? Because I don't have kids in the school district.
We
My
currently have a
grandchildren.
lot of 3-ring binders.
Okay.
We don't have a
But
current system.
Bruce said something about you get stuff online already? Tests and stuff that are under,
Yeah, so there's two different avenues for that. One would be Google Classroom, which is that day-to-day, but then we also have our Family Access, which links to Skyward, that's where we'll go to see grades and the daily assignments.
but in either of those, there's not this level of.
Correct.
That was.
And it's more day-to-day. You're not going to see the big picture. You're going to see what's happening right now or what just happened,
Right.
not the
Yeah,
the
I was
big
aware
picture.
of my grandchildren and my daughters tell me, or my daughter tells me about the Skyward system
Yeah.
or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
she can get in and see things. But I didn't think it was to this level, but this will be really good. Now, will this be available to the public, the parents, as they're trying to help their children choose classes for the upcoming year?
Yes,
They'll be
absolutely.
able to go in and look at this online and say, okay, I have 5 math classes, this is what they're going to be, my kid's going to choose that one.
It's exactly what we're hoping this to
And
do.
we don't
We're going to
currently
add.
have that, do we? Anything like that?
We do. I mean, we have a course catalog that has all the detail.
But it's in paper.
But, well, it's also online. We do have it online, but this is just a different view, a different way to dig in. The course catalog will not have this level of detail.
This is great. The public's going to love this. Thank you so much for all of your work on this, you guys. This is really going to be very well accepted by the public.
It's been a really enjoyable process. We've learned a lot as we get to dig in and solidify, so appreciate that.
Good job.
Well, I think it helps align our curriculum with our standards, and from that standpoint.
Absolutely, that's one of the biggest benefits.
Can you answer this one? Because I know what elementary math is in world language, but what's grades 2 to 5 integrated units?
So
What is
integrated
that?
units is a way we look at the social studies, science, and to a certain degree, health would be included in there too. So instead of having them all separate, the integrated unit approach is looking at some more interdisciplinary a focus. We're actually going to change that to be more aligned in language to researchers workshop, because that's really what the students are developing in those courses is their research skills. So we'll have readers workshop, writers workshop, researchers workshop.
In the elementary schools?
In elementary only, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. President, I would just say, I mean, to me, what this replaces, what doesn't exist anymore, is your kid comes home from the first day of school with their history textbook, and you as a parent can flip through that textbook and kind of go, oh, now I know what you're going to be studying this year. Because kids generally don't have textbooks anymore, with rare exception. Like that's the gap.
Mhm.
I think that this really helps address.
Are there textbooks on their pads?
Sometimes, but we as parents then aren't accessing them. So the kids might have an online textbook access, but they're not sitting at the kitchen table so that you can kind of peek and go, I wonder how they teach about 18th century, whatever. So I think this is going to be a huge resource for parents who kind of have that, so what are you studying next question? And the kids say, oh, I don't know. You know, I mean, it'll be all there
Great,
for us.
great.
Yeah.
It
So
looks
thank
like
you.
it's a lot
Thank
of
you.
work, like it's been a lot of work.
It has been a lot of work. The curriculum specialists have done an amazing job of collecting a lot of individual meetings with teachers and a lot of clarification on all sides. So the curriculum specialists have learned a lot. We've learned a lot. Teachers have learned a lot about why it's so important to be consistent.
And it will be a lot of work, I think, keeping it current and keeping it as classes change and textbooks change and information changes. But this is going to be so valuable to the parents. This is really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job all around. Thank you for all the work you put in.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to topics for action. I entertain a motion to approve the consent items. Our treasurer is not here but please read the language with the funding.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move to approval of the consent items and that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $12,408,309.13.
All right, motion by Sandy, second by Carrie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Next up is...
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I could real quickly, there are 2 retirements that the board just acted on that will be effective at the end of this year. Matt Friedel, who has 15 years of service in the district, is a high school social studies AP guru, I would say, as well as an instructional coach. And then Tess Rosardi, who is a teacher at Willow River, who has 24 years of service in the district. So they'll be retiring at the end of this school year.
And they'll be made to attend the teacher recognition banquet at the end of the year.
I will do what I
so-
can to
all
ensure
right.
their attendance, yes.
Yeah. I know that these retirements start trickling in and so forth, but I think it provides us board members, and we've had some really good attendance there in the last year or two, but gives us that opportunity to have that face-to-face recognition and expression of appreciation for all their work. So, but anyway, we thank them, and we'll thank them again. All right. Policy Series 800, Part 1, second reading.
So you've already had this in front of you for a work session. You've already had it in front of you for a first reading. So this would be the approval of second reading. Upon approval, these sets of policies would become board policy. So, like I said, it's been a month since we looked at these, but there have been no changes since the last time you looked at them and approved the first reading. Correct.
I move to approve the, what number are they?
The second reading of the
I move to approve the second reading of,
Part 1 of the 800 series.
we're doing it all at one time, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Part 1 of the 800 series.
Second.
All right, very good. So the motion is out there, and the 800 series is specifically addressed on what topic?
Community relations.
Right. And it's an important one. That's why we divided it up into 2 parts. All right. Having heard that there's no changes and there's been a motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Moving on, the next up is the school calendar proposal, which was discussed at length, ad nauseum, at our work session, and but without action and without definite decision, because we wanted to get input from staff, and we wanted to get input from our contractor and the construction process to see where that would go. So turn that over to Dave.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. So as you said, we've discussed this already at the work session. The proposal in front of you is very similar to what you saw at the work session. Only a few minor tweaks. Worked with the calendar committee. They did a great job of combing everything over and making sure there weren't anything that we missed. They found a few things that we think were improvements, very minor. I'll give you an example. We had a PD day of a late start in January. They thought it would be more effective in October when they're working specifically on developing their goals. So we made those sorts of changes based on their input. Short of that, everything is pretty much the same, so I'll just quickly go through the main points of the calendar and then answer any questions you might have. So first day of school would be Monday, September 10th, according to this proposal. If you think about the way Wisconsin law governs that we can't start after, or before rather, September 1st, the first possible school day would be the 4th, so we're only about 6 days past the actual earliest date we could start. That will still give us, though, that nice long upcoming summer of 18 to allow the construction to take place. The last day of school then would push us out to June 11th with kids, teacher checkout day on June 12th. And then we have spring break, which was previously committed to by the board, of March 11th through 15th, and graduation on June 8th. If you would add up all those days, you would notice that equates to 178 days. We typically have the 180 instructional days. We're recommending an 8-minute addition to instructional time each day for this calendar, which will help us make up those 2 days that we would suggest taking off the calendar. The reason we are proposing that is that will allow us to get on a regular cycle then, so we're not pushing so late into the summer, so the following school year we can have a regular summer for that summer of 19, I guess that would be. And in doing that, those 8 minutes, we have to figure out exactly where they're going to fit to make sure that it doesn't make any current situation worse, and hopefully we can improve situations. We'd meet with transportation and meet with all 3 levels to come up with the best placement for those 8 minutes. And other than that, it's everything you saw. So what questions do you have?
Mr. President?
Bruce.
What about the graduating seniors? Would they be getting out the same last day, or do they get done early?
They would get out on Friday the 7th, which is the day before graduation likely. So it's always before graduation that we don't expect them to come back after graduation. Those 8 minutes makes up for that time, so they would meet the required minutes of instruction as well.
And so this essentially splits up finals into, part of the finals will be before graduation and some will be after.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Okay.
just
Yes.
curious on the seniors. And I don't have a senior, so I don't have a dog in the sun, so to speak. But were we not looking at them to get out earlier? Did we not try that a couple of years ago, where we did 2 weeks in advance?
Not 2 weeks. Just the 1 week in advance.
But
And
this is only like
3 days.
3 days.
It's because it's the date that graduation fell. So when graduation was, or when the last day of school rather was pushed later in the week, that's the result. Because the agreement was that they wouldn't continue after their graduation. So like if the last day of school is on a Thursday, teachers check out on a Friday, then it's the 4 days. But we're open to discuss that.
I think the discussion that we had about it at the time, and I still think it's very relevant today, is a lot of those students are, either looking to get jobs or, get started with their jobs. And sometimes if they are out late, some of those jobs aren't as readily available because other kids might be getting out, in May, especially those graduating seniors. So to me, I don't know what they're going to be doing those last few days of school.
Bruce, part of what's happened is we have not been in compliant with our senior schedule in the past. Seniors are still required to go the minimum number of hours.
Okay.
So part of the reason why this is pushed back to the day it is so that we get the number of hours in for our seniors and we're compliant with state law.
But we could possibly move it up a week if we made them go to school on the day before Thanksgiving on that Wednesday, and then on January 2nd. Those would be the only 2 days throughout the whole school year that would possibly be something that could be squeezed in there, right?
Yep. Yeah. Those are potential days.
But then we're not
We'd
going to
be
make
going
just
against the Calendar
seniors.
Committee and the community survey. But
Right.
You're not gonna get them out. I mean, you'll get them out earlier and everybody else out earlier. So they won't get out any earlier before the other kids than what we have set up here. And the thing is right now it's a function of the amount of hours we have.
Okay, that's cool.
Mr. President?
Or if 8 minutes isn't long enough, you want to add 16 minutes to the school day, then, yeah.
I'm not going to be the person that's responsible for that.
Okay. Heather.
So two quick questions. One, so do we have not many classes that have mixed levels in the high school? Where
No,
you
we
have
do.
seniors,
Yeah,
to
we do.
me that's, I think, how do you let the senior, because then I think it's ways to talk about what happens in the last week. If the seniors are gone for a week, I have to think that things just shut down then in those classrooms that have a
We
large
gotta
number
remember
of seniors.
the last 2 or 3 days are finals for everybody else. And so a lot of times what'll happen with some of those days is they'll spend the last day or two before finals in review with those juniors or sophomores that are in that class, and that's usually what makes up that last week.
Huh. Okay. Question about the 8 minutes. So will that require a bus schedule shift the following year, or will we be able to accommodate that and not mess with busing next year and then again the year after?
Well, we will be, and a lot of people could speak to this better than I could, but we'll be examining busing, obviously, from ground up and making sure that it makes sense. So we'll use those 8 minutes to make it the best possible situation, to put the time where it makes things better for us. Are you talking about the next year, the following year?
I'm thinking so we have a bit of a mess with busing times this year,
Mhm.
and then we'll probably have some changes next year, and then are we going to have changes again the subsequent year as we go back, as we take those 8 minutes off the school day?
We would adjust each year according to the amount of instructional time. Yep. But I think we've learned a lot about how we need to approach that to make sure that we don't miss anything along the way.
One of the things you gotta remember, it's the school start times doesn't really mess up the busing as much as it messes up parents that are dropping their kids off, because in a given year, or from year to year, depending on how the routes go. Now, granted, we moved the middle school, which really moved the middle school busing, but one year your kid could get picked up at 6:25, and the next year they could get picked up at 6:35 based on the kids in the neighborhood and how many people we have to pick up. So it's really, the bigger issue is the parents that are dropping off and picking up. And then, as we talk to teachers, if you add 8 minutes to the morning, the high school starts to get really early. And if you add 8 minutes to the afternoon, we're trying to keep in mind that on days such as today, about 4:30, 4:45, it starts to get dark. We want to make sure we get our elementary kids home and they're not walking,
especially the ones that are walking 3/4 of a mile up a road.
Yep.
So with this change, and it will be a unique year because we're starting so much later and having a later graduation, but we also had that survey that you mentioned because there was strong support for at least the Wednesday before Thanksgiving having that off. But there was also 60-some% that wanted us to look at switching, the elementary start time with the secondary possibly. But this is making it more likely it's going to be at least a year out before that's examined.
That's exactly correct. We would anticipate that for the 1920 calendar year, we'll take a more comprehensive look. That's not suggesting that some of those more exploratory topics necessarily would be on the docket, but definitely want to take a look at things like PD days and the late starts versus full days. Some of those things that we think that we might be able to make some more structural improvements.
Right. Yeah, that kind of change is not something we're going to just do lightly.
Right.
And, we want to get this construction done, and we want to there's a myriad of other issues that kind of go along with it. We want to make sure it's well researched and plenty of community engagement on it. So, but the motion, I'm ready for a motion if there is one to approve.
I'll make a motion I'll move that we accept this calendar as presented for 2018, 2019.
Is there a second?
Can I ask one other quick question?
Well, we got a motion.
I'll second it so that you can ask a
Thank
question.
you, Heather. Yes, now we can have discussion.
Thank
Motion's
you.
been seconded.
Thank you. What if we get it ahead of our schedule? Would it be open for discussion?
I would say,
does it not make that much of an impact?
I would say probably not, just from a standpoint of parents scheduling vacations and things like that. Like, they may say, well, since you're not starting until the 10th, we're going to capitalize on the Labor Day weekend, and we're going to be gone, maybe that Tuesday, Wednesday.
When are we going to find this out, like 4th of July, that we're caught up and we're ahead of schedule, and then trying to get that word out to the community and the teachers that you're starting on September 4th instead of September 10th?
Just asking the question,
Yeah,
James.
I know. Well, no, but you're right. We already stretched it by going this late. I mean, just historically, we've been 2 calendars out in advance, and this is the first time we're approving the school calendar this late, and we're doing it only because of the construction.
And so,
Just a real nightmare to try to change this after it's out there.
yeah, I mean, that's why what hair I have left will probably be gray by the end of the summer as we push to make sure that we can start on time and get these things done. So I think one of the
That's
things
a problem we hope we have. Is that we're done too
it would be
early
a great
in the
problem we
summer.
have, but we'll probably need to start talking about the 18-19 calendar here in the next couple months, because typically we set that about.
You mean 1920?
Yeah, 1920. At least start the conversation. And as Dave said, as we work through this, if we're going to do major structural changes, those are conversations that take a lot of community input as we have those conversations. So
Okay.
Yeah.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
All right. That's a great question. I still think it should be asked. So, all right. Any other questions on the school calendar?
Mr. President?
Yes, Carrie.
I guess my question would be why we are voting to approve this anyway, because I think this calendar is what's been communicated to the buildings. So I think this is
Well,
just a formality.
what was
but maybe
communicated
it's-
was the start date and end date of school was not set. Only, in fact, graduation wasn't set. So that's what we're setting, is the start date, the end date, and graduation date, and all the dates in between based on that. All we said was, what was it, spring break and winter break? Is
I
what we-
think what
two
Carrie's
graduation
getting at
dates.
is we had building forums over the last 2 weeks.
Mhm.
This calendar was shared with the building forums because it's the feedback that we got from the board when we worked on this in the board work session about 3 weeks ago, and we did share with the members of our district that this is what we would anticipate the board is planning on approving tonight at this meeting, since it follows the feedback that we got at the last meeting. Okay.
Oh, one last question.
Yes.
Sorry. Do we call out the last day for the seniors on the schedule, or is that not typically called out on the calendar?
We've typically not called that out specifically on the calendar.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Going once, twice? All those in favor of the motion of approval of the school calendar as recommended and vetted through our staff and various committees and building forums, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. All right. Last, we have the selection of WASB delegate and WASB alternate delegate. And this is something we do at the November meeting, I think pretty much every year, because resolutions are already coming out. I think that those were mentioned. There's different school districts that have those. We usually don't cover those until the next meeting, but it's the job of the delegate to get up on the resolutions, meet with Nick, because not all of them are obvious as far as what's in the best interest. And then we'd also open it up for the board for discussion and guidance. But we've got, I think, 5 board members that are going to be attending the state convention. I think Rob's been the delegate the last 2, and I think I was the delegate the 2 years before that. So I don't know that it's been anyone other than me or Rob for probably close to 5 years. Is that right, Sandy? So is there somebody else that would be willing? And there's been a strong tendency to give it to the first year school board member too. So is there a nomination?
Quick question. It appears that the delegate assembly does require an additional day and night at the convention. Is that accurate?
No. No. But
No.
by what additional day? 'Cause
Are you
it's-
sure?
Yeah. Now that's only that pre-delegate assembly discussion. I don't know. I can't speak for Rob, but I can tell you I definitely did not attend that.
Okay.
No, that we had other informational sessions we were attending at that time. But we normally show up on Tuesday anyway because of the drive.
Yeah.
And so Wednesday is when you have the orientation, and the assembly is on that Wednesday. And that's really the only day that delegates are obligated to be there. Is there a motion?
Sure. I would be happy to do my duty and represent. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need to formally
Yes, we
nominate?
need to do a
Okay,
motion and a second.
I
and-
nominate Heather Loughlin as our delegate to the
Second.
convention.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Move
Those
to adjourn.
opposed, you're elected. Next is.
Move to adjourn.
No,
Nope.
too late. You got it, or too early. You've got to, next we have to do a delegate alternate in case Heather cannot fulfill her duties and she gets the
I should
crew
really
or
go to
something.
Bruce since he jumped the gun there, I think.
Yeah. I think it would be very much in order to entertain a motion to make our experienced previous delegate an alternate. Is there a,
So moved.
well, can you say a name?
I would move to have Rob Brown be the alternate delegate for the
WASB convention
WASB
delegate.
convention.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Now we do a second alternate. No, just kidding. I'll take a motion now to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.